Freedom is not what you've been taught to want, it's what you've been trained to fear. They told women to be kind, to be graceful, to be easy to love, but they never told you the cost. Because the truth is, every time you chose to be good, you quietly betrayed something wild and real inside you, and now you feel it. That quiet exhaustion, that invisible weight pressing on your chest every morning, that moment when you look in the mirror and see a woman who is functioning but no longer alive. You are not tired because life is hard. You are tired because you have been performing a version of yourself that was designed to be accepted, not to be free. And if you keep going like this, another year, another 5, it won't just cost you time. It will cost you your identity, your voice, your ability to even recognize your own desires. This is not a comforting message. This is a confrontation, because in the next few minutes, we are not going to heal you. We are going to strip away the illusion and force you to face the woman you abandoned and decide if you're ready to take her back. I remember the exact moment it hit me, not like a loud explosion, but like a quiet collapse from the inside. It was late, the kind of late where the world finally stops asking things from you. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, still wearing the version of myself I had performed all day, the agreeable one, the calm one, the one who never made things difficult. And for the first time, there was no one left to impress. No expectations in the room, no roles to play, just me. And a silence so heavy, it felt like it was pressing against my lungs. That's when I realized something I had spent years avoiding. I didn't know who I was without being useful to someone else. Not who I was when I wasn't needed. Not who I was when I wasn't pleasing, adjusting, accommodating. Just me. And the truth was unbearable, because underneath all that effort to be good, there was nothing but exhaustion and a quiet resentment I didn't want to admit. Resentment toward people who never asked me to disappear. Resentment toward a world that rewarded my silence. But most of all, resentment toward myself for building a life that looked right but felt empty. That was my breaking point. Not because something dramatic happened, but because nothing happened. And I still felt like I was suffocating. And if you see yourself in this, listen carefully. The trap was never the people around you. It was the identity you built to survive them. Somewhere along the way, you learned that being loved meant being easy, that being accepted meant being predictable, that being safe meant being smaller than you really are. So you adapted. You softened your voice. You edited your thoughts. You swallowed your instincts. And slowly, you became a version of yourself that could fit anywhere, except inside your own life. But here's the part no one tells you. That version of you, it's not your personality, it's your armor. And armor is not meant to be lived in. It's meant to protect you temporarily. Stay in it too long, and it starts to suffocate you. That's why you feel stuck. That's why you feel disconnected. That's why even when everything looks fine, something inside you feels off, because deep down, your system knows you are living out of alignment with your own nature. And here's where everything shifted for me. Not when I decided to find myself, but when I finally asked a different question. What if nothing is wrong with me? And everything I feel is a signal that I've been ignoring my own boundaries, a signal that I've been negotiating with my truth, a signal that I've been choosing comfort over authenticity again and again. That question changed everything, because instead of trying to fix myself, I started observing myself. I noticed when I said yes, but meant no. I noticed when I laughed to avoid conflict. I noticed when I stayed silent just to keep peace. And every time I caught it, it felt like betrayal. Not dramatic betrayal, quiet betrayal, the kind that doesn't break you all at once, but erodes you slowly. And in that awareness, something uncomfortable but powerful emerged. I had been abandoning myself long before anyone else had the chance to. That realization was brutal, but it was also freeing because if I was the one abandoning myself, then I could also be the one to stop. That's when I understood the core of self-mastery. It's not about controlling your life. It's about reclaiming your response. You don't control how people react when you change. You don't control who stays or who leaves when you stop being convenient. But you do control this, whether you continue betraying yourself to keep them comfortable. And that's the line. That's the boundary between a life that looks stable and a life that actually feels like yours. So I started small. I stopped explaining myself to people who weren't trying to understand. I stopped volunteering my energy where it wasn't respected. I stopped shrinking to maintain connections that required me to disappear. And yes, it was uncomfortable. There were moments of guilt, moments of doubt, moments where I questioned if I was becoming too much. But then I realized something else. The version of me that felt too much was just the version of me that stopped being controlled. And slowly, that version started to breathe again. Not perfectly, not loudly, but honestly. And that honesty, that raw, unfiltered connection to myself, that was the beginning of something I had never truly experienced before. Freedom, not the kind that looks wild on the outside, but the kind that feels grounded on the inside. And if you're still here, if something in you is tightening or opening or resisting as you hear this, then you're not lost. You're waking up. Now you have a choice. Not tomorrow, not when things feel safer. Right now, you can go back to the version of you that is easy to accept, or you can step into the version of you that is true. But understand this. You don't become free by thinking differently. You become free by acting differently. So here's your way out. First, stop explaining yourself to people who benefit from your silence. You don't need permission to exist as you are. Second, identify one place in your life where you are still betraying yourself and cut it off. Not slowly, not politely, clean. Third, set a boundary that makes you uncomfortable. Because if it feels comfortable, it's not a real boundary, it's a performance. Fourth, redirect your energy inward. Build your internal world so strong that external validation becomes irrelevant. And finally, do something symbolic, something irreversible, a decision, an action, a line you refuse to cross again, because freedom is not given, it is taken. You were never too much. You were just never meant to be controlled. So if you're done living as a version of yourself that feels safe but empty, say it, not to me, but to yourself. I take my life back.